The pounding exploded against my door before sunrise. Hard, fast, relentless. Not a knock. A demand. The kind meant to break sleep and send a message. White beams of flashlights sliced through my windows, crawling across the walls like searching eyes. Voices followed, sharp, impatient, already angry. "Open the gate," Gloria Vance shouted from outside. Not calm. Not polite. Entitled. "You don't get to ignore HOA orders." I stepped onto the porch, cold air biting, heart steady but heavy. Across the yard, her compliance team stood ready beside my locked gate, tools in hand. Behind them, shadows moved, neighbors watching from the darkness. Among them, I recognized Caleb, silent near the mailbox cluster, eyes fixed on Gloria like he had seen this before. "You were warned," I said quietly. Gloria laughed, short and mocking. "You really think rules don't apply to you? I built this neighborhood. I decide what happens here." Metal snapped. My gate lock strained. For a split second, doubt hit me. What if help didn't come? What if this was the moment I lost everything? I made the call anyway. Just a few calm words. Gloria stepped forward, smiling like victory was certain. She had no idea backup was already on the way. If you want to hear more true stories like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button to HOA Update. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? I didn't always feel like a man under siege. When I first arrived at Pine Hollow Estates, I was chasing something simple. Quiet mornings, steady ground, a place where life could move without conflict. After years of rebuilding, I wanted peace more than anything. And at first, Pine Hollow looked like exactly that. Clean streets, trimmed lawns, perfect order. Too perfect, maybe, but I ignored that feeling. The first time I met Gloria Vance, she didn't arrive with threats. She arrived with cookies. A white box tied neatly with a blue ribbon. Warm smile, calm voice. Calm voice. Friendly, almost comforting, the kind of neighbor people trusted immediately. "Welcome to Pine Hollow," she said sweetly. "We take care of each other here." I thanked her. She stood there a moment longer than needed, her eyes drifting, not wandering, but measuring. My fence line, my driveway, my mailbox. Every inch quietly assessed. I took a bite of one of the cookies. Then she spoke again, casually, like she was mentioning the weather. "Oh, just a small thing," she said gently. "Your grass is about half an inch too high. I'd hate for your first week here to start with a violation notice." The sweetness vanished instantly. I forced a polite smile. "I'll fix it." "I'm sure you will," she replied, still smiling, but something behind that smile didn't feel kind. It felt controlled, satisfied. That was the moment I realized Gloria didn't just enforce rules. She watched people. The first notice came 3 days later. Mailbox alignment violation. I adjusted it. Then another, fence angle correction. I fixed that too. Then brush clearing violation near my back boundary. That one confused me. It was clearly my land. Still, I complied. Fighting small things felt pointless, but the letters didn't stop. They increased, each one small enough to seem reasonable, but together they formed a pattern. Pressure disguised as procedure. Around that time, I noticed something else. One afternoon near the mailbox cluster, Gloria was yelling at a quiet man I had seen but never spoken to. Thin build. Reserved posture. His name, I later learned, was Caleb. "You think rules don't apply to you?" Gloria snapped, pointing at 2 trash cans sitting barely outside a painted line. "I can fine you every single day if I want." Caleb didn't argue. Didn't defend himself. He just stood there, defeated. As Gloria walked away, I caught his eyes. There was frustration there, but also something else. Waiting. I didn't understand it then. But Caleb had been watching everything. Watching Gloria. Watching the pressure. Waiting for someone to stand up. Days later, While walking the far edge of my property, I found the first real warning. Survey markers. Fresh, bright, placed deep inside my boundary, not near it, not close to it, but clearly within land I legally owned. I checked my deed that night. Then the county map. The markers were wrong. Completely wrong. The HOA had no legal claim there. Still, I didn't confront Gloria immediately. I didn't shout, accuse, or escalate. Instead, I wrote a calm, clear notice and delivered it directly to the HOA office the next morning. Stay off my property. No anger, no threats. Just truth. Gloria read it in front of me, silent for a moment. Then she smiled. Slow, dismissive. "Oh," she said lightly, folding the paper. "We'll see about that." A few days later, during a small neighborhood gathering, she laughed about it publicly, turning my warning into a joke. Some neighbors smiled nervously, others avoided eye contact. The message was clear, she wasn't worried. But something had shifted. Cars slowed near my house. Conversations stopped when I walked by. Notices began arriving more frequently, longer, sharper, more invasive, not strong enough alone to fight, but together building pressure. Then, one evening, just as the sky darkened, I heard the soft scrape of paper against my front door. I opened it. A sealed envelope waited. Official. Final in tone. Notice of violation. Immediate attention required. And for the first time since arriving in Pine Hollow, I knew the real conflict had begun. 3 mornings later, the line moved. I stepped outside expecting quiet, but the moment I reached the far edge of my property, my breath stopped. Fresh orange survey flags cut straight through my land in a perfect line, deeper than before. Not a mistake, not confusion, a claim. I pulled the first stake from the soil, then the second, then the third. Each one came out with a dull scrape that echoed louder than it should have. By the time I reached the last marker, tires crunched behind me. Gloria's black SUV stopped near the driveway. She stepped out first. No cookies this time, no smile. Just control. Mark Delaney followed with his clipboard like it was law. "What do you think you're doing?" she asked sharply. "Removing illegal markers from my property," I replied, holding up the last stake. Mark stepped forward. "You are obstructing an authorized community boundary adjustment." "There is no adjustment," I said, unfolding a copy of my deed. "This land is protected. You're trespassing." Gloria didn't even look at the paper. "You keep waving that thing like it changes reality." "It does," I said calmly. Her eyes hardened. "You really don't understand how this works, do you? Grant access now, and we forget this happened. And if I don't?" She stepped closer. "Then I make your life very difficult." By afternoon, the fines started. Obstruction, non-compliance, boundary interference. One after another, each one heavier than the last. Neighbors stopped speaking to me. Doors closed when I walked past. Even Caleb kept his distance, but I noticed something different in his eyes now. Not defeat. Awareness. Then came the hearing notice. Emergency HOA Board Review. Non-compliance. I attended. Gloria stood at the front, presenting a new map, one showing a bold red corridor cutting through my property like it had always existed. "This land," she announced calmly, "is under community integration review." I held up my deed. "That map is false." She smiled slightly. "You misunderstand the process." When I finished speaking, no one defended me. Not because they believed her, but because they feared her. That night, another envelope appeared on my door. Heavier. Final. Grant community access immediately, or face enforcement action. No more warnings. They were coming. The pressure didn't explode overnight. It tightened, slowly, deliberately, like someone testing how far they could push before something snapped. It started after midnight. I woke to movement outside. Soft gravel crunching, low voices carried by the cold air, not imagination. Not wind, real. When I checked the camera feed, Two figures in reflective vests stood near my back fence, flashlights low, sweeping across the boundary like they were searching for something. No notice. No authorization. Just quiet trespass dressed as inspection. I stepped outside. "You're not allowed here." One of them barely looked at me. Routine check. Routine. By morning, one of my security lights had stopped working. The wiring had been loosened. Clean, deliberate, intentional. I repaired it, but the message was clear. They could reach me whenever they wanted. Then came the complaints. Anonymous, repetitive, manufactured, noise violation, landscaping obstruction, non-cooperation with community survey. Each notice alone meant nothing. Together they formed pressure, constant, suffocating, designed to wear me down. 3 days later, they blocked my driveway. 2 HOA utility vehicles parked across the entrance, hazard lights blinking, cones lining the road like a warning zone. A temporary sign read, "Community easement, restricted access." I stepped outside, anger rising. "Move your vehicles." Mark Delaney stood beside one truck, calm, detached. "Temporary restriction pending boundary resolution." "This is my driveway," he wrote something down. Didn't move. That night, I carried groceries down the road on foot while neighbors watched from behind their windows. No one spoke. Fear had spread quietly through Pine Hollow, and Gloria was feeding it. The next HOA meeting was worse. The room was full. Gloria stood at the front, calm, controlled, presenting a large printed map, her altered map, with a bold corridor cutting directly through my property. "This land," she announced clearly, "is part of the Pine Hollow expansion review." Murmurs spread. I stood. "That map is fabricated. The boundary is protected." Gloria smiled slightly. Not warm, not polite. Dominant. "You misunderstand how community development works." She invited neighbor comments. One suggested compromise. Dismissed. Another mentioned property rights. Ignored. By the time I finished presenting my deed, the room had already shifted, not against me, but away from me. Silence had become survival in Pine Hollow. I left humiliated, frustrated, and alone. At home, the tension spread. Every sound outside felt sharper. Doors were checked twice. Lights stayed on longer. Peace had been replaced by watchfulness. Then came the night everything changed. It was 2003 a.m. when the sound came. Not paper. Not footsteps. Wire. A sharp metallic snap, followed by the slow screech of cutters forcing through steel. I moved quietly to the window and looked out. 2 figures at the far boundary. Flashlights low. Hands working fast. The fence wire snapped again. "They won't notice till morning," one whispered. They weren't testing the fence. They were testing me. I didn't shout. Didn't move. I watched, recording everything, until they disappeared into the dark. By sunrise, the cut line was visible, clean, precise, deliberate. Standing there, cold air cutting across the open break in my boundary, something inside me settled into certainty. This wasn't enforcement anymore. This was control. And it wasn't going to stop. That evening, just as the sun dipped low, a certified envelope appeared on my door. Heavy. Final. Stamped in bold, forced enforcement scheduled at dawn. They weren't hiding anymore. They were coming. I didn't sleep that night. The house was quiet, but my mind wasn't. Every letter, every threat, every step Gloria had taken, replayed in perfect detail. Fear had been there once, not anymore. What remained was focus. If they were coming at dawn, I needed the truth before sunrise. Before the county office even opened, I was already waiting outside with every document I owned: deed, boundary survey, purchase records, old correspondence. When the doors unlocked, I walked in calm and precise. No anger, no accusations. Just verification. Within an hour, the first crack in Gloria's control appeared. The official county map did not match the HOA map she had presented at the meeting, not slightly. Completely. The corridor, she claimed, didn't exist in any legal record. It had been altered, deliberately. The clerk adjusted her glasses and looked at me. "Your boundary is protected under a registered dispute clause," she said. "Any forced entry without court authorization becomes criminal trespass." The words landed steady, solid, final. Years ago, when I first bought the land, a legal advisor had insisted on adding that clause, standard protection against unauthorized boundary claims. At the time, it felt unnecessary. Now, it was everything. Because that clause meant one thing: the sheriff had jurisdiction. And Gloria didn't know. I requested certified copies, maps, records, annotations. Every document stamped, verified, undeniable. For the first time since this began, the balance shifted. I didn't confront Gloria. I didn't respond to the enforcement notice. I prepared. Every HOA letter arranged in order. Photos of illegal survey markers. Footage of blocked driveway access. Recordings of late-night inspections. The cut fence. The altered HOA map. And highlighted clearly the boundary protection clause. An evidence file. Complete. Unbreakable. Then I made the call. Calm. Direct. Quiet. I explained everything: unauthorized boundary alteration, repeated trespass, planned forced enforcement at dawn, protected property status. I gave dates, evidence, proof. The voice on the other end listened carefully. Then, understood. Be ready tomorrow morning. That was enough. By evening, Pine Hollow felt strangely still. No letters. No inspections. No warnings. Just silence before impact. Gloria believed tomorrow would be her victory, the moment she would force access and prove her authority. I didn't stop her. I didn't block the gate. I didn't warn her again, because this time I wanted her to cross the line completely. Late that night, I organized one last piece of evidence. At 10:47 p.m., a soft knock came at my side gate. Caleb stood there, tense, glancing behind him. He handed me a sealed envelope without a word. Inside was an internal HOA memo, not public, not official, but real. It confirmed everything. The expansion corridor had never been approved. It was an internal strategy fabricated to pressure and absorb adjacent property through fines and forced compliance. My land had been the first target. Caleb finally spoke, quietly. "She thinks tomorrow ends this." I met his eyes. "It does." He nodded once and disappeared into the dark. I added the memo to the file. Final proof of intent. Then I wrote one last notice. Short, clear, final. "Do not trespass." I delivered it directly to the HOA office and left without waiting. Her reply came within the hour. "We'll see about that." Enforcement proceeds at dawn, no doubt, no hesitation. She believed she had already won. Standing at my window deep into the night, watching the darkness stretch across the land she thought she controlled, I felt only certainty. Everything was ready, every move documented, every step recorded, every authority informed. Tomorrow morning, they would walk straight into their own trap. I turned preparation into proof. If they were coming at dawn, every second had to be seen, heard, and recorded. I spent the afternoon installing additional cameras along the fence line, near the gate, and facing the driveway where they had blocked me before. I tested every angle twice. Clear image. Clean audio. No blind spots. By sunset, my property wasn't just watched. It was documented. Pine Hollow felt restless that evening. HOA vehicles moved more often than usual. Lights burned late inside Gloria's office window. Plans were being finalized. Pressure was building toward morning. Then, just after nightfall, came a quiet knock at my side gate. I opened it to find Caleb Rourke standing there, shoulders tight, eyes scanning the dark street behind him. He didn't waste time. "You need this," he said, handing me a sealed envelope. Inside was an internal HOA memo, not public, not official, but real. It confirmed everything. The expansion corridor had never been approved. It wasn't under review. It wasn't pending. It was fabricated. A strategy. A slow-pressure campaign designed to force boundary concessions through fines, intimidation, and staged enforcement. My land had been marked as the first target. Caleb exhaled slowly. "She thinks if she moves fast tomorrow, you won't be able to stop it." I looked at him calmly. "Thank you." He nodded once and disappeared into the darkness, just as quietly as he had arrived. I added the memo to my evidence file, the final piece. Intent. Proof. Motive. Motive. Then I wrote one last notice. Short. Clear. Final. Do not trespass. I delivered it directly to the HOA office that night. Gloria read it in front of me, eyes steady, expression unreadable. Then she smirked slightly. "You still don't get it," she said. "This ends in the morning." Back home, I reviewed everything one last time. Cameras active, evidence organized, documents sealed, timeline prepared. Then I made one final call. Calm. Direct. "Yes," the voice confirmed. "We'll be there." That was all. The night stretched longer than any before it. Every sound carried meaning. The wind brushing against the trees, distant engines, a dog barking somewhere down the road. Sleep never came. I didn't try. I watched. At 2011 a.m., an HOA vehicle passed slowly with headlights off. At 2058, faint movement near the far boundary, two figures checking the cut fence line again, unaware the cameras were recording every step. At 3047, silence returned. They were ready. So was I. I stood near the window as the darkness began to thin, watching the horizon shift almost imperceptibly toward morning. Weeks of pressure, threats, and control had led to this single moment. Gloria believed dawn would bring victory. But dawn would bring exposure. Everything was in place. Every move recorded, every step documented, every authority informed. Before sunrise, everything would change. Darkness still covered Pine Hollow when the first headlights appeared at the far end of the road. Slow, deliberate, engines humming low like distant thunder. I had been standing near the window for hours, waiting, watching, knowing this was the moment everything would be decided. One vehicle became two, then three. The HOA convoy rolled to a stop outside my gate, tires grinding against gravel, engines idling in the cold pre-dawn air. Doors opened, boots hit the ground. Flashlights flickered on, sweeping across my fence, my yard, my home, like they already owned it. Gloria Vance stepped out last. No smile, no kindness. Just certainty. She believed this morning belonged to her. Across the street, porch lights flicked on one by one. Curtains moved. Neighbors stepped outside, drawn by the tension hanging heavy in the air. Among them stood Caleb, silent, watching closely. Gloria raised her voice, sharp and confident. "You've dragged this out long enough," she called toward the house. "We're done waiting." Mark Delaney moved to the gate, gripping the chain. Metal rattled as tools clicked into place. The lock strained under pressure. I stepped onto the porch. Cold air filled my lungs. Silence fell across the street. "You were warned," I said calmly. Gloria laughed, short, dismissive. "You really think you can win this? I built this neighborhood. I decide who belongs here." The lock snapped. The gate swung open. The line had been crossed. Gloria stepped forward onto my land, boots pressing into grass she had no right to touch. The compliance team followed, moving with the confidence of people who believed the outcome was already certain. I stepped down from the porch and faced her. You ignored my warning. For a moment, she just stared at me. Then she smiled, slow, victorious. This is over, she said quietly. You've lost. For the first time since this began, doubt hit me. I looked down the road. Nothing. No lights. No sirens. No movement. My heart pounded hard against my ribs. Had the sheriff ignored me? Had I miscalculated? Was this the moment I lost everything? Gloria took another step forward, victory written across her face. Then, a sound, faint at first, then rising. Sirens. Distant, growing louder. Closer. The compliance team froze. Neighbors leaned forward. Gloria's smile faltered. Red and blue lights appeared at the far entrance of Pine Hollow. The siren stopped, and sheriff vehicles rolled into view. Red and blue lights washed over Pine Hollow, cutting through the last darkness of night. The convoy of sheriff vehicles rolled forward slowly, deliberately, until they stopped just outside my open gate. Doors opened in sequence. Deputies stepped out, calm, controlled, unmistakable. At their center was Sheriff Daniel Mercer. He didn't rush, didn't raise his voice. He simply walked forward, boots crunching softly against gravel, eyes taking in everything. The broken lock, the compliance trucks, Gloria standing inside a property she had no legal right to enter. For the first time that morning, no one spoke. Gloria tried to recover first. Sheriff, this is an internal HOA enforcement matter. Mercer raised one hand. She stopped, stepped back from the property line, he said evenly. Now. The authority in his tone shifted the air itself. Deputies moved quietly past him, positioning themselves along the fence and near the gate. Cameras recorded everything. The compliance officers looked uncertain, their earlier confidence fading. I stepped forward and handed Mercer the evidence file. My deed. County certified boundary map. Recorded trespass. Altered HOA documentation. And this. I handed him the internal memo Caleb had given me. Proof of fabricated expansion and attempted forced enforcement. Mercer opened the folder under the fading night sky. He scanned each page carefully. The deed, the certified map, the footage stills, the memo. His expression remained steady, but the silence stretched heavy. Gloria's voice tightened. You don't understand. The HOA operates under development authority. This property, ma'am, Mercer said calmly, closing the folder, you and your team crossed a legally protected boundary without court authorization. The words landed hard. A deputy stepped forward, reviewing the documents over Mercer's shoulder. Another photographed the broken lock, the cut fence, the survey markers placed illegally, everything documented. Everything official. Gloria shook her head. This is a civil dispute. You can't. Criminal trespass, Mercer said firmly. And based on this evidence, we are opening an investigation into falsified property records and unlawful boundary claims. A ripple moved through the watching neighbors. Shock, disbelief, realization. Mark Delaney stepped back first. Then the rest of the compliance team followed, uncertainty replacing confidence. Gloria stood frozen, caught between denial and reality. No, she said sharply, this isn't finished. But it was. Deputies, Mercer said, remove unauthorized personnel from the property. The officers moved immediately. The compliance team withdrew beyond the gate, silent now, powerless. The authority Gloria believed she controlled dissolved in front of everyone. Mercer turned to her. Gloria Vance, he said, you are being detained pending investigation into trespass and falsification of property documents. For a moment, she didn't react, like someone waiting for reality to reverse. Then her composure broke. This is absurd, she snapped. You don't know who you're dealing with. The cuffs clicked shut. Neighbors watched in stunned silence as Gloria was escorted toward the sheriff's vehicle, the same street where she had arrived believing she would claim victory. One by one, The HOA vehicles pulled away. The pressure was gone. The control was gone. And slowly, the first light of dawn spread across Pine Hollow Estates. The sky softened. The sirens were silent now. Sheriff vehicles remained, steady and unmoving, as the neighborhood stood in complete silence, watching truth replace power. Morning settled gently over Pine Hollow, and for the first time in weeks, the air felt clear. No flashing lights. No engines. No pressure hanging over the street. Just quiet. Real, steady quiet, the kind that comes after something heavy finally lifts. I stepped outside slowly, almost expecting the tension to return. But it didn't. The gate stood open. The driveway was clear. My land was mine again. By midday, word had spread across the neighborhood. The HOA board issued an emergency notice. Gloria Vance was officially removed from leadership pending full investigation. Within days, that investigation uncovered everything: altered maps, falsified boundary claims, fabricated expansion plans, and months of pressure tactics designed to seize control piece by piece. It had never been about rules. It had been about power, and now that power was gone. Neighbors began approaching quietly. Some apologized for staying silent. Others admitted they had feared Gloria for years. Even those who had once avoided me now stood openly, relieved that the truth had surfaced. The silence that once protected control had been replaced by something stronger: understanding. Certified letters soon followed. The HOA formally withdrew all claims against my property. My boundary was permanently recognized and protected. Every violation notice voided, every enforcement record erased. The false corridor disappeared like it had never existed. Repairs came next. The cut fence restored, the broken lock replaced. The driveway fully cleared. Simple things, but they mattered. They marked the return of something Gloria had tried to take: peace. Weeks later, a community meeting was held, not for conflict, but for change. New leadership. Transparent rules. Clear property protections. Voices that once stayed silent now spoke freely, determined never to allow fear to control Pine Hollow again. I didn't speak much that night. I didn't need to. Standing near the back, I watched neighbors rebuild something stronger than before. Not authority, not control, but trust. And when the meeting ended, and the crowd slowly dispersed beneath the quiet evening sky, I realized something simple. My warning had never been a threat. It had been protection, not just for my land, but for the truth. The next morning, I stood at my gate as the sun rose over Pine Hollow Estates. No sirens. No shouting, no pressure. Just soft light spreading across the grass, calm and steady. Safe. Respected. At peace. Justice hadn't arrived loudly. It hadn't come with anger or force. It had arrived exactly when it needed to, when the truth could no longer be ignored. And sometimes that's enough. If you want to hear more true stories like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button to HOA Update and tell me in the comments, where are you watching from?